Hey guys, this is Dave Millican, the Ace of Belts. You're listening to Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome one more time to the Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling podcast. And once again, as always, I'm here with my brother from the same father and mother, my tag team partner in life. What's up, Jut the Plastic Sheik? What are you doing, brother?
Man, I'm just enjoying a day off and getting ready to have a good time with this interview.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I'm very excited to have Mr. Dave Millican, the Ace of Belts. As you all saw, that is the show for the day. Dave's a guy I've wanted to talk to for a while. He's so popular, it's been tough to get him because a lot of other podcasts have been getting him on, and it's been a back and forth, but he's a great guy, and he's given us this time, so I'm excited to be able to talk to this guy. I mean, literally, he has a touch of everything in just about every promotion from so many decades. I mean, it's crazy to think of the belts that this guy has made.
Yeah, and not just wrestling belts, but like UFC, Bellator, stuff like that. I mean, he's the guy that people turn to when they want a high quality belt, man. That's
professional. I mean, your fantasy football league, you could have one for that from Dave Millican, you know?
Yeah,
so
there you go, brother.
I don't know what the price on that would be, but hey, so, you know, but anyway, to kind of go back and do a little housekeeping here, our last episode, of course, we had the hilarious Gene Jackson. We did the Thunder in Paradise watch along. Of course, that's already out. Hope y'all have enjoyed it, seeing great numbers on that. One thing I want to let y'all know about, if you haven't done this, you can actually go to our YouTube channel, Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling at GMBMPW, and you can actually watch the movie with us talking throughout it. Now, you know, maybe that's annoying to you, but that's the whole idea of a watch along. So get over it, right?
Yeah, there you go.
But yeah, that was a lot of fun. It took me a little while to get that done because my computer does not really like large, massive video files. I'm not a video guy anyway, but anyway, it was a lot of fun to get that done and a lot of hilarious times watching it. So I hope you all have enjoyed that. You know, I kind of wanted to breeze past this one because there's been some things coming up on other podcasts that I kind of feel like we need to address. So a few episodes ago, you know, we did one of our What If episodes, right?
Right.
And, you know, we love What If Sting versus Hogan, What If Magnum T. I mean, we got all kinds of What If ideas. I'm not going to go into that right now. But one of the biggest ones that we wanted to do since we thought of it was what if Ultimate Warrior and Sting switched places. Okay. Well, the numbers through the podcast apps were great. Amazing. The numbers through the YouTube channel were also amazing. I think we have a short addressing Sting's need in the Jim Crockett promotion is nearing 35,000 as we speak. So, you know, that's crazy. I know shorts are popular, but man, this one must be popping up in everybody's feed because I swear it's out there, you know.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So I think we did this like 3 or 4 months ago. You guys go back in the archives, definitely give it a listen. But why I bring this up is here recently, not only on one major podcast, but 2 major podcasts, this question has come up. Now, Jared, we know that we're probably not the first people to ask what if of that question, right?
True,
I mean,
yeah.
That's not ours. We didn't trademark it. We didn't originate that thought. I'm positive. But I want to say that we had a little touch on this. So right now you can hear the clip of Conrad and Ric Flair. Conrad asks Ric Flair about the question.
Says, my question is, if the roles reversed in the late 80s with Sting going to the WWF and Jim Hellwig going to JCP, how would both men's careers have panned out?
Sting would have been huge. Hellwig would not have worked at the JCP.
Not for long.
No. Can you see Jim Hellwig getting along with Ole Anderson?
Well, that's fair, I guess.
Now, let me be honest. Harley Race.
Yeah.
So Sting would have been huge either way, and was, and is. Jim was hard to do business with,
Right.
and that wasn't a word like when he didn't want to do the favor and he held them up somewhere. Do you think someone's
Madison Square Garden, SummerSlam
Yeah.
91.
What do you think Harley Race would do in that situation?
Broke his leg.
He'd walk over in the locker room and beat him up so bad, and he'd throw him out the door and tell him not. I mean, that's the way it would happen.
Right.
I mean, that's the way the business was back then. Jack Mulligan, can you imagine that? I mean, I can't fathom that. I just can't.
All right. And then now, also, you sent me last night as I'm going out to get some dinner, you sent me a text and you were like, check this out. And I'm usually pretty up on this one because I'm on YouTube a lot like you are. And this one popped up that this was Jim Cornette getting asked the very same question. Yeah. What if Sting and the Ultimate Warrior went to different locations?
All right. Well, our final question here this week, Jim, sent to the official Cult of Cornette Facebook group from Devin Pettiford. Do you think if Sting went to the WWF instead of Warrior and Warrior went to WCW, would they have risen to as high a level as they did?
Oh, good God, no. Good God, no. Sting would have become a star in the WWF. Warrior would have become a professional chiropractor after WCW well, it would have actually been Jim Crockett Promotions at that point. He wouldn't have lasted 3 weeks in Jim Crockett Promotions. From what I've never had the misfortune of dealing with him much on a personal basis, except for that one famous lunch and afternoon visit. But no, he couldn't work or talk to the standards of the talent in Crockett Promotions. He didn't have the attitude to want to learn. He would not have been in any way babied or coddled or pushed past his ability like he was with Vince, because Dusty nor Jimmy Crockett nor anybody else in the Carolinas gave a about bodybuilders or cared what his body looked like, whereas that was what Vince saw to make him the next guy.
Now, again, there could be some sort of coincidence in this that it was asked 2 times on 2 different shows, but I gotta say this with all honesty. I gotta feel like this was one we put out in the air there, man. I'm just saying.
Yeah. And for the listeners out there, we did not send these questions
Absolutely.
to Ric Flair or to Jim Cornette. We did not send that question. We were kind of just like, hey, cool. That question's coming up to them too. And, it's cool. I got to think somebody might have saw the short or saw a video and, thought, hey, let's ask
somebody that wrestled both of them,
or somebody wrestled both of them, or that was around. Like Cornette wasn't around Warrior. I think he said he had some kind of weird meeting with him one time. He said, but
yeah. Anyway, I don't know if we are the reason, but I feel like if there's a percentage of it that we are possibly the reason. And I'm not here to pat ourselves on the back. I'm not here to toot our own horn, but as Arn Anderson would say, Jared,
toot.
Exactly. I'm just saying. So, hey, if y'all listen to our show and then went to Rick and Jim to get their expert opinion, I really appreciate that. What I love the most, though, is that the legends, the podcasting giants, agreed with our point,
Yeah.
So it wasn't.
Cornette's was a little different. Like Ric Flair was almost spot on with what we said.
Right. Right.
And nothing against Cornette because he's an amazing wrestling mind, but to hear it from Flair, who has been in the ring with both of those guys, with Sting may be his most common opponent. I don't know if that you could look that up. I don't know, but
right.
I mean, he may have wrestled more time against Sting than anybody.
Yeah, I think he wrestled Warrior a couple times. Either way, though, he's Ric frickin' Flair. He's gonna know. Exactly. He's gonna know if it would have worked. And again, I don't want to stay too far on this because we got a big show ahead of us. But to be honest, just tell us, y'all, Do you think that they took it from us? Because again, 3-4 months ago, we do this show and we did a lot, man. We went in deep on it. We broke it down from the Warriors side. We went down from the Sting side. If y'all haven't checked out that episode, honestly, I don't know why you're here, but secondarily, if you haven't, go check it out because truthfully, I think it's one of our best, most researched episodes. You know, that, I think that, what do you think, Jared?
I think that it's outside of our interviews, because interviews are about the guests we got on. Outside of our interviews, that could possibly be our best, like playing off each other and like being just well researched, and we knew the topic.
Yeah, we went deep on the topic. We wanted to be the final say. Now, again, I'm never going to say we're the final say over Cornette. I'm never going to say we're the final say over Ric Flair. I'm never going to say, because wrestling fans are going to ask other people. But I just love the idea that somebody, even if they just flew by in YouTube and said, what if Sting and, well, by Jax, I might ask old Corny about that, you know? I'm happy. So
yeah. And the one thing, if the question had came out to them a few years ago, there was something in maybe one of the Warrior documentaries where somebody kind of says something like that, not exactly,
right? But
so then I would have put it on that. But you know, that Dark Side of the Ring episode's at least a couple of years old now, and that A&E biography, which I don't think was the one they said it in, was like a year and a half ago. So
it could have been out there prior to this. Again,
but like I said, it wasn't the exact question.
Right. And also, I guarantee nobody has researched it as much as you and I did. We wanted, like I said, to be the somewhat final say on the matter, you know. And the beauty part of it is the greatest wrestler of all time and one of the greatest minds, historians in this business of all time, both somewhat down to the details agreed with us. So anyway, thank y'all for listening. Thank you for asking Legends the question. It means a lot. Yeah. We're just two kids from Southwest Virginia that love pro wrestling and get our way to get a little bit of talk about it. So, with that being said,
hey, just let me interrupt you right quick. Yeah. I heard you and I was listening to you and Wolfie's Jerry Jarrett episode, and you were talking about Southwest Virginia and everything like that. The way my coping mechanism for always explaining it so people didn't think I was from West Virginia, and to really get, nothing against West Virginia, but just to tell them that I was from Virginia, I would always say I'm from the southwest part of Virginia.
Yeah, that
was always my explanation for it.
Yeah, because you can't always count on somebody to say Southern West Virginia.
Yeah.
And again, we're very close to Southwest Virginia.
Yeah, exactly, we are.
But we're Southwest Virginia, or I like how you say we're from the southwestern part of Virginia, and I like that. I used to say we're from the big toe of Virginia. So if you see Virginia, it's like a foot, and we're in the big toe region. So anyway, I think that pretty much is it for. Unless you have anything else for the Open, Jet. What do you think?
No, man, that's good. That's great. I was thinking to mention the same thing myself with that question. So good job.
Yeah. Oh, well, hey, that's what we're here for. Like minds make it happen. So I say let's take a quick little break, listen to a couple of our buddies' podcast commercials, and we'll be right back with the Ace of Belts, Dave Millican.
Hey guys, this is Wolfie D from PG-13. Check out my podcast, Live and in Color with Wolfie D, every Monday at noon. We're talking Memphis, we're talking ECW, WCW, WWF, everywhere that I've been. We even have some great guests, some Hall of Famers on the show with us. Every Monday, Live and in Color with Wolfie D.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for sticking around. And this one more time is the Ace of Belts, Dave Millican. Welcome to the show, my friend. How are you doing today, sir?
Yeah, better than I deserve. How are you?
Oh, man, we're doing good. Thank you so much for coming on. It's definitely been something I've wanted to talk to you about. It's funny, man. I was thinking, Dave Millican, let's get him on the show. And then, boom, Jericho got you. I was like, well, that was a great show.
Thanks, man. That was something we were trying to line up for a while. And then his schedule, my schedule, and, we finally got it done. And I think we taped that thing back in maybe mid-December, something like that. But it finally got out there. It's been a while since I'd had done one. I'll do things, here and there for my buddies and stuff. But I was looking back and I was like, my gosh, man, time's passed me by. I was on one of the early Steve Austin shows, and
Yeah.
But that was 9 years ago.
Wow. Wow. Time flies, man.
Time flies for sure. That's awesome. Well, we're glad you're on our show today, Dave. So just sit back, relax, and we're going to bug you with some questions, brother. So
I look forward to it.
Awesome.
Hey, Dave. So we always start out. This is my favorite question to ask people, and people kind of, it could put you on the spot a little bit, but it's a fun question. But yours is going to be a two-part question because of your specialty. So my favorite question is your Mount Rushmore of wrestlers. Like, who are your favorite? Like your top 4? You can have 5. I'll give you 5. I give everybody the opportunity to have that 5th one, and your Mount Rushmore of title belts.
My gosh, man. I think we just did the whole show right there by the time we got through that. Oh, man. I sit around and in my very limited spare time, and I see other people pose this question online, and mine would probably look considerably different than a lot of the rest of the wrestling fan population. And the reason why is really about personal connections. And as much as it is, accomplishments and stuff. But I always drive myself crazy, and I'll always walk away from the question. But let's see what we can do. Oh my gosh. It's like I'm going to have to say that personally and professionally, you got Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's, I thought so even before. I first met Steve in 1990, and he was being managed by Jamie Dundee, my buddy JC Ice.
Oh, yeah.
And, And I already knew Jamie a little bit, and Steve had, kind of just come into the territory and stuff. And I thought, oh man, big, guy, long blonde hair, got the look, and he can work, even though he was just getting going. I mean, he just had it. But man, whoever would have thought,
Yeah.
And so Steve Austin, all right, Steve Austin.
Love it.
Oh my gosh. And I think probably a lot of people over the last, 20 years, 25 years might think, really? But I get into a lot of these, the guys that, you're always going to have your people who are going to go, Flair, Rock, Austin, whatever. And those are all 100% qualifiable names, but for me, I wouldn't be in this business without Jerry Lawler.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. Awesome.
I absolutely would not be in this business if you take Jerry Lawler out of it. So he's always going to be on Rushmore for me. And a lot of people think, well, he's never even won a title in WWE or whatever, all kind of silly stuff like that.
Yeah.
But who cares?
Right.
Right. If you think he was the guy that just sat there and yelled puppies, or maybe did a couple of, they had the program with Brett and the program with Taz. Well, that's all true, and those were good programs, but you still don't know the guy if that's what if that's
learn something.
Let's see. Yeah, right. Educate yourself. So okay, we got 2. So oh my gosh, man. Oh, geez. So let's go with. I think you do have to go with Ric Flair. I think Rick has to be on it.
Yeah.
And here's why. Right now, we just talked about how maybe guys that have been watching the business for 20 or 25 years might not understand the greatness of the King, but you have 20-year-olds who are watching video of Ric Flair from 1986. 1987, because he has influenced pop culture that much, transcended the wrestling business that much.
Absolutely.
So I think you got to go with Rick.
Yeah. My wife saw part of a match with him and Steamboat in that trilogy one time, and she's like, wow, this is really good. And she doesn't know anything or doesn't like wrestling at all, but like she saw that. Yeah. So that just shows you, like, when somebody can see that and recognize that doesn't know anything, it shows you.
what better endorsement is there? I mean,
Right.
Exactly.
It's one thing for me to be like, oh, Jerry Lawler this, oh, Steve Austin that, or whatever. But for somebody that's not a fan, I'll be 56 years old in a few months, and I've been a fan most of my life. I've been involved with the business the majority of my life,
Right.
and I still put Rick up there. So when you get somebody that says that is not a fan, it's because everybody can recognize poetry in motion.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Rick didn't just talk the talk, which God knows that he could, but he walked the walk.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I'm telling you, these guys that I'm naming, and this is something I've said before, these guys that I'm naming, people will be talking about them in 30 years, in 50 years.
Totally.
These are names people will still talk about, like we talk about. If you're a true fan, like you'll go back and talk about Luthez.
Yeah. Right.
Then you'll. So we get into the deep woods here, man. There's so many. Because I love Dusty, and I love Harley, and gosh.
Remember, you get a fifth one if you need it. Don't forget that.
Well, I tell you what I'm going to do. I am going to go, and a lot of people are probably going to think that we're getting into generalizing and sticking to maybe NWA stuff or whatever. But another person that transcended the wrestling business was Dusty Rhodes. Dusty Rhodes was doing national commercials in the late 70s.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Get back with stand back, baby.
Love it. Oh, man.
And I got to know, I met Dusty before then a little bit, but I got to know Dusty when he came in, and I was seeing him on a weekly basis for a little bit during the early TNA days.
Yeah.
But Dusty and I were never like close friends or anything like that, but I was around him a lot. He was very good to me. A lot of these guys, Rick, Dusty, I had an automatic in because these were guys they wrestled against Reggie Parks, the man that got me in the belt business. And then they also ordered belts from him later. So, I had kind of an automatic in. It's like, oh, that's Reggie's guy. He's all right. And or even truly, that's the King's guy. Well, he's all right. He's fine. But okay. So what do we have? We've done Austin. We've done Lawler. We've done Dusty. And this next one was, and Rick. So I'm going to go 5.
Okay.
I'm going to take the 5.
Love it.
And the reason we take 5 is, he might have gotten kind of lost in this digital age where everything can be fact checked. But a guy that truly, I'll take heat for this one, I'm sure, from a lot of people, but if you lived through it like I did and you watched the business transform, then I think you have to put Hulk Hogan up there.
Oh, yeah.
No doubt.
And whether people think the business changed for the better or not is always going to be a debate.
Right.
But I've heard people say, well, Vince could have done that with any number of guys. And I could not disagree more.
Yeah, I agree. Totally agree with you. Yeah.
So there we go.
Love it.
A great list, and I always tell people no wrong answers on that. I mean,
yeah, and I have to remind myself of that going forward because my gosh, man, it's like you have, so many. I left Harley Race off, and that was painful. But
right.
Because Harley, my God, it's like there's always going to be somebody you think, oh, that one hurts. That one hurts.
Yeah. It does. I have Terry Funk, Lawler, Ric Flair.
Oh my gosh, see, Terry Funk.
And Roddy Piper on mine. So it's like, how do you, but I love Bret Hart too. I love Dusty. I love Sting. There's so many guys, but I love Terry Funk so much. I love Roddy Piper so much. I love Ric Flair. We're not talking about me though right now. So
Bret is another guy. And here's how Bret changed the whole business. Bret was the guy that when Rick was ready to go back and leave Vince again, I didn't see that coming. I did, and I was connected. I was already kind of on the inner loop on some of the workings of the wrestling business and knew some of the people. And and I didn't see that coming, and it took me by surprise. Not because I didn't think Brett was capable or deserved it. I just didn't think Vince would ever do it.
Right.
And so Brett's another one. Brett would deserve a spot on anybody's. It's valid. It's valid. Roddy is valid. Roddy was the guy, for crying out loud, that wouldn't take the WWF title because even he said, "Yeah, I might not drop it back."
Yeah,
because he didn't.
It's true.
Because he really didn't care that much for Hogan. So he even said, out of all the things Hogan says that are questionable, right?
Right.
He said, "I wanted to do business," but Hot Rod outright said, "Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that I would do it. I don't know that I would do the favor for you."
Yeah. So, It's so great, isn't it? It's so great.
It is. And I know we probably got to talk about some belts now and stuff, but I'm telling you, I did this with, I think I do it with everybody that I'm on with. If we start off with wrestling, it's been such a big part of my life. I've done belts for Kiss and Garth Brooks and Madonna and Jason Aldean, and I'm going to forget somebody like that, but I'm just saying it transcends wrestling so much now.
Yeah.
But I do this because of my love for the wrestling business. That's what got me into it.
You can tell. That's evident in your craftsmanship. So.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. Okay, so Rushmore belts, and oh my gosh, the first one's easy because it's the answer I always give when I've told you the main guy responsible for why I do this, but the main belt that was responsible for me getting into this business was it ran from about late 1981, this particular version, until about 1989. And it was the AWA Southern Heavyweight Championship from Memphis.
Oh, dude, that's a beautiful belt. It is. Yeah.
And these days, everybody thinks it's got to be a foot tall, and it's got to have 1,500 CZs on it. And it's got to shine like a diamond in a goat's ass. But I'm going to tell you something. When you walked into the Coliseum back in the days before I could talk my dad into getting me down into the loggia on the floor, you can walk up into those cheap seats of the Coliseum, and when that spotlight would hit that belt, it might as well have been a foot tall, and it might as well have had 1,000 CZs on it because you could see that belt from anywhere in the Mid-South Coliseum.
Yes.
And it was
gorgeous belt.
Yes, it's always going to be my number one because I wouldn't have ever started doing this without it.
Yeah.
So, oh my gosh. All right, so we'll go from that to this is going to be easier than the guys. We'll go from that to the 10 pounds of gold.
Yeah.
Love it.
We'll go from the 10 pounds of gold to the big gold.
Okay.
The original one.
Right.
Sitting about 35 minutes from my house right now, that one.
Oh, don't tell me that, Dave. Oh my gosh.
Some of the copies were, nice, and the follow-ups and the WWE versions and the whatever. But that original belt that was handcrafted out of sterling silver and overlaid in gold. That Crumb Rind belt is one of a kind, and nothing. There's some beautiful copies out there, but there's only one real one.
Yeah.
So we'll go with that one.
Yeah.
And then we're going to get a little more personal, and even though it didn't originate with me, God knows I've done more of them than anybody else. We mentioned Hogan and we mentioned Brett, and I probably should have mentioned Shawn somewhere in the middle of all that, but the Winged Eagle Championship belt, as they call it, which I always said that name would never catch on, by the way, when it was somebody first started saying it a little over 20 years ago.
Right.
All eagles have wings.
Yeah.
Well, boy, was I wrong, because when they sent me my royalty report, Winged Eagle, Winged Eagle, Winged Eagle, Winged Eagle. But that was a Reggie Parks specialty, and Reggie considered it not just his, but our signature belt. And I say that because even Reggie knew that I ultimately ended up doing more of them than he did.
Yeah.
and as the collector market grew, especially, and all that. So I think that would be it. I'm leaving off 100 belts that I love, but that's why it's a Rushmore, right? So
that's right.
So a little segue question. If I can promise to delay this after WrestleMania, will we see another Winged Eagle coming soon, maybe?
Oh my gosh. Well, as much as the honest to God truth is, as much as I know. I have been so tempted to I haven't talked to Cody in a couple of years, but I get so tempted to text Cody and be like, "Hey man, any chance?" And the truth is, I haven't heard a word. And my last communication with WWE was an email on Sunday night about some other business. So I haven't heard a word. Nobody said anything to me. So
gotcha.
And it would have to be me legally.
Right.
So
right.
So that's the truth. I guess if I was being coy, then you could read something into it. But the truth is, there's been zero communication with me about it.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful belt. Not knocking the current belts whatsoever. They have their place. They're not my favorite, but if I were to pick, the AEW title is much more, it reminds me of the old Mid-South title, but what is the Mid-South National title or something that it looks
North American.
North American, thank you. The beauty of that AEW title is so much more than the current WWE titles. But again, my thinking on this is I don't really care as much about the newer stuff, just like in my wrestling fandom. I love talking about the old stuff. And I guess to talk about the old stuff, we kind of got to go where you started. So tell me a little bit about your upbringing, man. Tell me a little bit about your start, Dave.
Well, I grew up, about, 35, 40 minutes north of Memphis, Tennessee. So, and I grew up in a time, I've already told you how old I am, and not that, I don't have an autographed copy of the Bible or anything, but I've been around for a day or two. At a time when if you wanted something like that, there was no internet. There's no, let me get the Sears catalog out and order a championship belt. There's, if you wanted something like that, you had to make it.
Right.
And it's why so many, you can go back now even and find so many of the smaller promotions that had homemade belts. I mean, even Nick Goulas, who had all the resources of most successful wrestling promoters, had homemade belts in some cases. The NWA Mid-America Championship, which to most people doesn't hold up today because it just is engraved metal and shiny, and we thought it was cool in the Coliseum days, but anyway, it was the homemade, right? So that's what I had to do. I had to start homemade. And I started like most kids back then. I didn't have anything to work with. So let's see, go raid mom's cabinet and get the aluminum foil out and cut out some cardboard and get a little paint and see what you can slap together. And that's how we started. And it evolved into, I had an uncle who, my dad was very involved and very much around, but he worked a lot. And I had an uncle who lived next door who took up a lot of time with me, and he worked in Memphis at a place where, you could just take cutting torch and go down there and cut out a piece of steel for me. I could just draw him a template and go with him down there, and we'd cut it out and shine it up, and I would do, paint, put some trophy pieces on it, and put it on at the time, mostly, whatever I could find from old seat covers or whatever. I didn't even really get into it. We were a little later in the 80s before I even started messing with real leather. And that's how it started. And it just evolved until I'd actually been around the wrestling business. And I knew of Reggie through, I think actually the King was the first person to even tell me about Reggie. But I had seen, from personal experience, but I had seen in the old After magazines where Bill and Reggie were friends, so occasionally on a Where Are They Now, Bill would slap a little segment about whatever Reggie was doing, and I always mentioned that he made most of the championship belts that were on the major television shows.
Yeah.
So I really just wanted a Reggie belt. Didn't really aspire at that point to make them, or certainly not ever for a living or that sort of thing. I never even thought that'd be a possibility. I never even... it's not that I sit and daydreamed about it. It never crossed my mind. I didn't think that was a tangible life goal, Yeah. So, I was working in a prison And I did that for several years, and I was kind of still, whenever I was free, I'd already had the in. I'd known the King since the late 80s, probably 87-ish, I guess, on a personal level. I'll fix up a thing or two here or there or whatever, but I wasn't really making anything other than stuff I did for, these days everything's an indie show if it's not a big time. But back then we just called them outlaw shows.
Right.
And I did some outlaw show work and whatever. And then, King was the first guy to put my stuff on television. Most of the early stuff there that really was just fixing up what they already had.
Yeah.
And keeping that going so they didn't have to spend more money. And in the meantime, I'd just bring the, USWA belts home for, a few days or sometimes even a week if I'd give them a little something to swap out, or they'd just go without a belt at the house shows.
Right.
And that was kind of the evolution of it. And then from there, once I got the Reggie belt, Reggie just asked me, he said, "Hey man, why don't you do this the way that I do it?" Well, I'd love to, but I don't have a clue how you do it. and once again, you didn't just hop on the internet and learn about etching belt plates or see some, Pakistani Facebook page that's got a $200 knockoff of something.
Right.
Right. So we just evolved from there. Reggie opened some doors for me, and we were on opposite sides of the country. So it was not like, here, let me show you how to do this. Here, let me show you how to do that. I just learned. I taught myself by looking at his work, ordered a couple more belts as we went along. But, that was it. And then Reggie just introduced me into the level of this business where, there's a lot more to it. And, now I've done more that I will always forget something. And I have people remind me, hey, didn't you make this belt or didn't you make that belt? And, sometimes I have to pause and think, oh gosh, yeah, I guess I did make that one.
Well, how did it feel when your first belt on TV? How did that feel when you saw that? And what was that belt?
Well, the first ones that I kind of considered mine on television, even though they were remakes or just fixed up versions of Reggie belts they had just beat the hell out of, were the USWA belts.
Oh yeah.
The tag team belts. But Jerry broke my heart. Yeah. He broke my heart, right? Because we got these red belts, and God knows, and this will hit home a little bit, and he knows it's true. Wolfie and Jamie just beat the shit out of those belts.
Yeah. God knows, right? The bodily fluid and everything I can imagine that's on those belts.
Not just Wolfie and Jamie. I don't know that Tommy and Doug were always the easiest on them either, but
right.
But when Jerry says, "Hey, what can you do with these?" And I said, "Oh, I can fix it." We're talking replating. He's like, "What's that cost?" So I'll check into it. And he's like, "That already doesn't sound good." So no, just shot them up. And I've always hated this red leather. Can you get rid of this red leather and maybe give me black leather and kind of change the paint scheme to match that? And my heart sank. I was like, "Oh, King, come on. Let me just make them look new again. Let me just take these red belts and I'll fix them up, make them look new again."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Nah, really, I'd rather have the black leather." So anyway, that was the first ones, and yes, it was very cool to see. Although I would have preferred to have put them back on red and gone that route with them. But even though those plates didn't originate with me, they might as well have. And to me, that was the biggest thing in the world. And also, that version of it got to be the Rock's very first belt. So I've made the Rock's very first belt and the Rock's to date last belt. So,
yeah. That's amazing. So you brought up a great point, and it led me into a place I wanted to talk to you about, Dave. So let me say this. I've asked Randy Hales about this, and I thought, Wolfie, I'm the co-host of the Wolfie D podcast as well. So with talking to Wolfie, he doesn't have a clue about this answer, but we had a listener, Ben Martin. He sent in a question asking us about the USWA tag titles, and he actually sent a picture of them being used in the Fullers, in Knoxville. And it's Jimmy Golden and Robert Fuller wearing them across their black leather, I think, and they're the USA Wrestling Tag titles. And then, of course, they show up and they're the exact same titles. Now, Randy didn't know how they got to the Memphis. He doesn't know. He assumes that maybe somebody just brought them to Memphis and they never made it back to Knoxville. Do you know the story on that at all?
Well, they originated on the red straps. With the
right. Okay. Okay.
Ron Fuller, when he opened USA Wrestling, and Ron told this story recently himself. He said that he had heard of Reggie from the wrestling days, but he actually didn't know because he had ordered a lot of Levy belts in the Continental days, and which I guess somebody else maybe it was David Woods or maybe it was somebody else in promotion ordered the beautiful Continental Championship belt that ends up being the USWA Southern belt with Eddie Gilbert.
Right.
And I'll get back to the tags in a second, but all this is tied in.
Yeah.
So Ron said that when he opened USA Wrestling, somebody had told him about Reggie, and he ordered the USA Heavyweight and USA Tag Team belts from Reggie, and he said, when he got them, he was blown away. To this day, he has his USA Heavyweight Championship. He still takes it to appearances sometimes. It still looks like $1 million, even though it was made in like 87 or 88. And he's always taken care of it. Well, the tag team belts, and it's funny because weekends before this past weekend we just came out of, I was with Wolfie and Jamie in Pulaski, Tennessee.
Yeah, he said he saw you there.
Yeah, and Jamie said that he thinks, and this would make sense, but I don't know that he's right about the names, but he said that he thinks that his dad Bill Dundee and Dr. Tom Pritchard brought those belts to Memphis and just did some kind of deal with King and with Jerry Jarrett to own those belts when USA shut down.
Got it.
And it makes sense because Eddie Gilbert had kept the Continental Championship, the gold. If you haven't seen it, look it up, or just pull up like 1990 USWA, and that was the Southern Heavyweight belt and the beautiful gold-plated Reggie Parks belt. And when Eddie would disappear from the territory, because Eddie'd get hot about something and leave, or Eddie and Eric Embry didn't get along, and I think Eric fired him one time. When you would see that beautiful gold Reggie Parks belt disappear and some stand-in belt show up as the Southern belt during that time, it's because Eddie was gone. Eddie took his belt.
Yeah.
And because I guess, Continental had shut down. Nobody questioned him. Eddie, I think, was booking, and he just took the belt. And
Got it.
Anyway, the tag team belts, Jamie said that he believes that his dad and Dr. Tom brought them to Memphis. And I know the timing is about right.
Yeah.
Because Bill worked in USA. I guess Dr. Tom worked. I know Dr. Tom worked in Continental. I guess he worked in USA. But that was the names that Jamie threw out.
Yeah.
So that would be about as much as I would know about it, too. I just know that they did show up here when USA Wrestling shut down.
Got it. That makes sense.
I'm in Ardmore, Tennessee now, but that's where I'm from, and so I still say here like I'm standing, just outside of Memphis. But
yeah, we get it. That's totally fine. No, I think that's the most. Randy, he was like, I don't even know if Randy really cared. He was like, they were just there. We just got them and they used it. I don't know the specifics, but you can ask Randy a specific about a booking decision, and he knows it a million ways to Sunday. So it's really cool that we got that element from you for sure.
Well, yeah, the difference is Randy was just, and there's a lot of guys in that position. Randy was never a belt guy, and and didn't pay that much attention to him. And I paid a lot of attention to him.
Exactly. Yeah.
So Dave, you kind of lead me into something that there's always a big debate with wrestling fans about, is there too many belts in like a promotion, or is there, and this is you're the expert, right? So I want to ask you, do you think that too many belts in a promotion is like diminishes the meaning of, the belts, or do you think the more the merrier?
No, I think it does. I think it does. And but it depends on the circumstances too, right? So my best example before the current day product is if you go back and you watch some 1986, 1987 Jim Crockett Promotions stuff,
let's do it.
you had, of course, the world champions there a lot by then, because that's around the time Jim just kind of, the NWA board really all but disbanded. Jim Crockett controlled the NWA World Heavyweight Championship at that point. Just a fact. It's not, so you got the world title there most of the time.
Right.
You got the NWA World Tag Team titles, because by then we'd reached a point where every territory, if you get back into 1965, you can probably find 3 or 4 different areas of the country that said they had NWA World Tag Team champions. But the recognized World Tag Team champions, Jim Crockett Promotions World Tag Champions, they were there, right? Okay, so then you got the World Television Championship. Then you got the World Six-Man Championship. Then you have alternating, it started with the National Tag Team Championship and later just the U.S. Tag Team Championship. We're at 6.
Right.
Then you introduce the Western States Heritage Championship. We're at 7.
Right.
and as much as I love Crockett Promotions, I might be leaving one out. I might have forgotten one. You guys would probably know better than I would if I did. But that was just a quick overview, right? A lot of people say, my God, everybody comes on the set has a belt.
Right.
Well, that's true. But also, some of those times, most of those nights, Jim Crockett Promotions was running at least 2 towns.
Yeah.
And I'd need to get into checking and make sure I'm right, but it would not surprise me to find out some of those nights they ran 3 towns.
Right.
So at the very least on a card, you could have a Western States Heritage Championship match with Barry Windham. If Ric Flair was in another town and maybe Rock and Roll was in another town with the World Tag Team titles, or on big shows, obviously they're all going to be together.
Sure.
It kind of, if you watch just the television, you think, oh, I'm sorry, I did leave that one. The National Heavyweight Championship, one of my favorite versions of the belt. The Tully Blanchard, Terry Taylor, Black Bart, all those guys versions.
I love that belt. Yeah.
I love it too. And I don't know how I left that one out, considering it's one of the ones I love the most. But again, okay, so you got one town that might have a U.S. heavyweight title, U.S. title on top, maybe a some one of the more minor titles underneath. At least it made sense, is what I'm trying to spit out here. At least it made sense. They were running enough towns that they wanted championship matches. And, the Western States title was a Dusty creation because he really thought they were about to expand out more on that West Coast, territory or make it a territory maybe. And it just didn't come to pass. So then you had Western States title matches. I mean, we had them in Memphis crying out loud in like 86. But it didn't matter. Here's why it didn't matter: because it was on Jim Crockett Promotions television, and it was a big deal just because it was one of their belts.
Yeah.
So today, do I think it's too many? I do. I do. I think that when you have, I think exactly what you said, Jared. I think it was you that said it. Yes, I think it dilutes your main title. I do. I think that the way Jim Crockett did it made sense.
It does. It does make sense. Yeah.
But I don't think that today that you need as many. Here's the shoot. I can't name every current WWE championship. I don't make those belts anymore. Like the handmade belts. Great relationship there.
You can tell.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, great relationship with those people.
Sure.
It continues for many, many years. There's never anything contentious. It's just we step more into our licensing situation.
Right. Sure.
And running that business and then trying to play catch up on all the collector belts that I got way behind on when our original engraving company went out of business several years ago. But so some of those that got lost in the shuffle, I play catch up on those. And if it's a big enough project, or Chris Jericho or Bret Hart or Ric Flair's people or whatever called, then I'm going to answer and I'm going to say because it makes sense, and it's not about ego. It's about good business and making sure everybody knows that I'm still doing this. So.
Well, yeah, and I can almost see you and my brother in very similar. He's not only a podcaster, he also is a pharmacist. So in the ultimate game, the idea that he's a pharmacist, he wishes that he didn't have to do his job because he's in the medical industry and he wishes everybody was healthy. But obviously, he's also a businessman. So he also wants people to come in because he does want them to have a little sickness, I guess. Not necessarily want them, but to know that he's there in case they are. And I can see that for you as well, being that, yes, you are a purist wrestling fan at the start of everything. So the idea of too many titles, do it like Crockett did, that kind of thing, versus you are a businessman. And obviously you want to make titles for people and sell them, you know. So it's kind of a catch-22, but I think you come from it. From the answer you gave was a very pure answer. So it's very appreciated that you gave that way. So.
Yeah, man, and that's it's easy to come out with it because it's just you never have to think twice about something when you're telling the truth, right? So
there you go. There you go. Yeah,
absolutely.
If you're a pro wrestling fan, there's something for everyone at the Cheap Heat TV Podcast Network. From the Pro Wrestling Discussion Show, Cheap Heat TV Live, to the interview show, the Jackson Interaction Podcast with the king of all wrestling media, Gene Jackson, to the silliness of the Whitey Jenkins Show, and the brand new Zip, Xander's Irresistible Podcast with Charles Anders. You can check them all out and much more over at cheapheattvlive.com.
So, Dave, I'm also like a action figure collector. I collect I collect any action figures from wrestling that I could get, even current. My son has probably stirred that up in me some, that I've got him into the figures. Do the toy companies come to you when they're making a design that's yours, or how does that work?
Yes, and by the way, the same. And my I have two kids, and both of them have been grown for quite some time. But my son and I both, my son's 33, but we both will say, we're not playing that game anymore. We're not gonna do this, and we're not gonna get that, and we'll sell off a whole bunch of stuff just truly just for space, Yeah. We'll sell off a bunch of stuff, and then they'll come out with something like these new Andre the Giants with the belt that was the Reggie belt and things like that. But to answer the question, yes, they. I have a deal. Our LLC has a deal with Mattel through WWE. So it goes a little bit. They're really good to us. That they have a lot of turnover, and sometimes we get lost in the shuffle and have to kind of rattle the cage, as I say, and we'll say, hey guys, you owe us a box of these or a box of those, but they're very good to us. Like they know that we were, even though WWE owns the design, the championship belt that The Rock debuted, and what was that, guys? 2013, 2014, whatever year it was. Even though WWE owns that design, we made it work because their original versions had a number of problems, and it's one thing to set and draw up some artwork on a computer. It's another to make it tangible, to be able to, and so we made it work. And my buddy Rico Mann, who has been my art guy for over 20 years, just tweaked it to where it would work. And then we did the 3D etched Brahma Bull side plates. And they knew we were instrumental in that, so they sent us a box of those.
That's awesome.
They don't always listen. I told them more than once. Steve Austin, I don't think had ever stepped foot in the ring other than maybe to train when that red television belt was retired in favor of the black one, but they still made Steve Austin with the red television belt.
Right.
So they don't always listen, but yeah, they do have. But we have a good deal with those people, and with the video game people as well.
Oh yeah.
And so, the new Power Town figures. My buddy Steve Kern was talking with Greg Gagne a couple years ago when this was all kind of in talking stages, and Greg was like, "Oh, we're going to do this belt, we're going to do that belt," and Steve says, "We got to call a buddy Dave." And Greg was like, "What for?" He said, "Because he owes all that." And then Steve calls and says, "Hey, Greg, glad you call you." I was like, "Not yet." And he's like, "He's going to call you." So Steve is just took care of me on that. And I talked with Greg once, and then I guess somewhere in the ups and downs of trying to get that business going, the contact with Greg just dropped off. And then Magnum called me last year.
Yeah.
And picked that right back up because Michael from High Spots had gotten with Magnum and said, hey, guys, don't forget, there actually is ownership over a whole lot of this stuff. And so Magnum called, and Magnum and I just worked together and ironed it out. And so, yeah, we're figured in on the Power Town stuff as well.
I was hoping so. We've got a working relationship with those guys. We've had Greg, we've had Magnum, and we've actually had Steve Rosenthal on. So if you need the boss's number, I'll send you his number, brother. We'll make sure you get paid.
I appreciate it, man.
Magnum's on it, though. I'm sure he's a great guy. Magnum's amazing, So.
Well, that's funny. Steve might be the boss up there, but Magnum is the boss. So it's
he's always the boss. He's always the boss.
To me.
Exactly.
So when Magnum and I did that, and there's paperwork signed now because eventually for the lawyers you have to.
Right.
They went into production on a verbal handshake, to put it that way, between Magnum and I, because Magnum knew that I would not let him get screwed around on the business end of it based on my words. And I knew the same about Magnum. So they went into production without us actually even signing the papers. They have been signed now, but that's how much faith I have in Magnum.
Oh, Magnum is amazing. And I could not believe it. We had Steve Rosenthal on the show, and he was great. And he was like, hey, my buddy Magnum, we can get TA with you. I'm like, you can get what? I thought we were just interviewing the amazing toy man that invented the Remco toys and all this stuff. But no, you're getting me with one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. Are you kidding me? And Greg and TA were cool with the interviews, but for sure Magnum was our biggest fan, freak out.
Let me tell you, it never ceases to amaze me. My buddy Conrad Thompson often says, my life is weird. And he started that. It's just saying, but he means it in a good way. And I can relate, because I'm going to tell you, from a guy that as a teenager would watch, it started, I think it was 9 o'clock in the morning, I'd watch World Class. And then at 10, at first it was Mid-Atlantic, then they started sending us the Worldwide show.
Yeah.
And then at 11, I'd watch Memphis Wrestling. And by 1985, after Memphis Wrestling went off, I could watch Mid-South out of Louisiana. And then from Mid-South, they added the WWF syndicated show.
Yeah.
So that was my Saturday morning and afternoon. And I'm kind of the bridge to the middle here. I was still a fan in those days, and I proudly say that I still am when it comes to the classic stuff. But and then I got in at a time where maybe a little late to be involved in the glory days of the Memphis territory, but I got in at a time and got to be friends with so many guys that I never thought I would be. Well, then the belt business got me into being, the Magnum TAs and the J.J. Dillons and the Ric Flairs and the, we can go on, but not just a name drop. What I'm trying to say is if I stop and I think about it, it's surreal to me too. And it's my life is weird. It's like, I had a phone call one time, and I'll be very broad with it instead of giving the details out of respect for, but I had a call from JJ one time, and he was asking me a question about another one of the horsemen about was it okay to give him a call. And you think it'd be a good idea for me to call him? And I was like, oh yeah, I think so. And so we hang up, and I go in my kitchen, and I'm doing something, and hit me. It's like, the leader of the Four Horsemen just asked you, is it okay to call another one of the horsemen? Is it?
Yeah.
my life was weird. So.
Yeah.
In a good way, though, right?
In the best way.
Yeah.
In the best way. Who would have ever thought, when I was a teenager watching, the Mid-Atlantic and Worldwide shows that would be a thing. That'd be a possibility. And, it was not, let me say too, before anybody gets a hold of this and wants to make a clickbait out of it or something, it was nothing negative. It was nothing negative. It was all a, hadn't been in touch in a while kind of thing. And he knew that I had. That's all it was. It was not anything negative. JJ is a wonderful, wonderful man. I never want anybody to get the wrong idea about any of that. So,
No.
But yeah, it was surreal.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So I've got one more question for you before Jimmy gets into the name game. What's your weirdest request you've ever had for a belt that you're just like, what? or like an obscure request if you don't want to go into like something that's just.
No, I'll say it. I have two opposite ends of the spectrum. Through my late, not really my business partner as much as Reggie's, but Ed Schumann, we did some porn belts. Now there was nothing on the belts that was nothing on the belts that was obscene.
Yeah.
But they were for a porn company, and I probably would have declined, but Ed did not. and I ended up finishing those belts. On the opposite end of the spectrum, somebody else asked me one time, and he meant it in his heart was in the right place, but he wanted a Jesus Christ belt, and I said,
Okay.
you know, everybody has their own beliefs, and you know, these days probably not the most popular thing to be of the Christian faith or whatever. But I just told him, I said, I can't do it. This is my living, and I don't turn down money most of the time if I don't feel a real strong need to. I said, but to me, you mean it in a way to honor. But how do you honor Jesus Christ with some leather and some metal? And I said, nothing that I do is going to do justice. And I know what you're going for. I admire what you're going for, but I'm not your guy and he was not happy with me. And I just said, I feel like it trivializes.
Right.
You know, this is something that we enjoy, right? We enjoy, like a lot of us enjoy, and God knows these days. And hey, I'm not knocking it. It's a good part of my living, but you know, you have grown men walking around at WWE shows with these replica title belts on their shoulder, but I can't do that and put Jesus on one of them, even if your intentions are good, and I know they are. Right. It's just a difference of opinion. To me, it trivializes. You think you're honoring, and that's fine. That's your opinion, and you're certainly entitled to it. My opinion is it trivializes Jesus Christ, and I can't do that.
Yeah, I think that's the right choice, man, honestly. You know.
So those are the oddest requests, I think.
And two opposite ends of the spectrum.
Very opposite.
As opposite as it gets.
Yeah.
So that's crazy. So I want to ask you a real quick question. I do have this thing called the name game, and Jared's blown my cover on that. But anyway, do you remember a guy named Ken Steele? I think he met you at WrestleCon a few times. He would always come, either the Greg Price and Ken from Virginia. He was a pro wrestler.
Yes, I absolutely do remember Ken. I was just very shocked and sad when we lost Ken. Ken would stay in touch with me and send me messages here and there. Just never let the contact. He'd never let the contact lapse for too long. And Ken was a good guy.
Ken was my mentor and trainer. He actually brought me in the business. I did a little bit of time in wrestling as a manager mostly, but I did end up wrestling a couple matches. But anyway, Kenny's one of my best friends in the world. Honestly, I would be possibly doing Live and in Color with Ken Steele. Not to say that I don't love my homie Wolfie D, but what I mean by that is I would probably doing a podcast with Kenny, except he would be like, God, kid, you're killing the business, you know? But anyway,
I love
Wolfie.
I love Wolfie, and I hadn't seen Wolfie. I saw Wolfie. I apologized to him, Pulaski, because we were both at Jerry Jarrett's funeral, and the only chance I got to speak with him, I would have been interrupting the conversation he was having. So I hadn't seen Wolfie in years, but I think a lot of Wolfie, and I did Ken as well, and was just very shocked and saddened. And Ken was one of the good guys for sure. But obviously, I'll have to tell you that.
Right. Yeah, Kenny is a great guy. I think of him almost every day was something that he said, and it was so sad because the last conversation we had, he texted me back and forth, and I was going through a back surgery at the time, and he said, hey, hope you do well, kid. Love you, kiddo. We'll talk after I get out of this doctor appointment. And then it never ended up getting to talk to him. Something happened, and then I'm out shopping for a bed because of my back issues, and sure enough, I get the text message that Kenny had passed, and I ended up going to his funeral, and of course I had to pay my respects and everything. And to me, the guy, he wrestled locally. He did a few job matches for some of the bigger companies, but to me, the wealth of knowledge that went away when that man passed, and it's just so sad. And obviously losing my friend is the biggest important part of that. But anyway, he spoke so highly of you, Dave. He said one time you guys were at maybe a Greg Price event, and he came up to you and he was talking to you, and he was talking about the big gold belt, and you said, you want to see it? And apparently you had it somewhere and you could show it to him, and he just thought that was the best thing ever. So he spoke as highly as you are of him. I promise you that, Dave. Yeah.
Well, I know it sounds corny and passe and made up, but as I sat here with a little lump in my throat and I got chill bumps on my forearms popping up, yeah, he was special, man. He was just one of the good guys in this business, as far as people that you wanted to be around and would always make you laugh. Gosh, I think the main times we got together were at those, when I was doing the yearly Greg Price things, and we stay in touch in between, but, just so many laughs. And I do remember, I hadn't thought about it in years, but I do remember that he was just blown away to be able to hold that belt. And I'm sure we took some pictures and stuff, but man, it's one of those that when you think about those Charlotte days, and I've come across a lot of those pictures lately, it's just never going to be right knowing that Kenny's not around anymore.
I know. I think about him all the time. They're actually doing a tribute show to him in Stewart, Virginia, coming up on the 25th of this month. So if anybody's near that area, definitely go and check that out to do that tribute show. You might see a familiar face or two. So that leads me into this as we're kind of wrapping up here, Dave. Again, thank you so much. This is a new segment for this show. I've done it a few times with Kevin Sullivan, Steve Kern, a couple different guys like that on the Wolfie D show. But for the Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling podcast, this is a very first. And what this is a name game. What I do is I name a person or I name an item, and then you give me your first words. But in this case, I'm going to do a little verses here. So I'm going to take one item and put it against the other, and you just say your favorite, okay? So are you cool with doing the name game, Dave Millican?
Yeah, let's try it.
All right. DJ, hit the music.
Now it's time to play the name game.
All right. The very first couple of belts here I'm going to put against each other is the Jim Crockett United States title versus the Jim Crockett TV title.
Oh, my gosh. It's still tough either way you go. But we talking silver U.S. or gold U.S.?
It's funny because that's a great point. And the silver U.S., there's a great story. Magnum told me about that where he kind of brushed it off. It was totally gone, or it was something to that effect. Is that? Tell me a little bit about that.
I had it for, a few years. And then my buddy, it went to another friend of mine in Louisiana, and now it's in Huntsville, Alabama. So that tells you one thing. I don't know what story Magnum was.
Well, he was just saying there was just some paint left over on it. It was pretty beat up, and he went ahead and took it off.
It had gotten the really deep blue paint had been polished to a point where it was light blue, and the red had been polished down to where a lot of the red and the blue both were missing, but the red had turned kind of a pinkish color. You can still see it in pictures of like Steamboat with it, or Wahoo before Magnum won it. And Magnum just went on and finished it off. He left a little bit. It was still there when I got it years later. He left a little bit in the back U.S. shields on it. But man, that's tough. But I will go with no matter which version of the U.S. belt it is. To this day, the more popular one in terms of sales is the TV belt.
Belt. All right, I like it. Go ahead, Jeff.
The TV belt.
Yeah,
and that's like I see that belt, and I see like Arn Anderson with it. I don't know. It's just
yeah, absolutely. All right, so the AWA World Heavyweight title versus the Big Gold.
Oh my gosh, man! Which AWA belt? Bockwinkel or the Big Belt?
The Bockwinkel, yeah.
The prison belt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think for longevity, you got to go Big Gold. My heart would be with the other one because Later years, Nick became a very good friend of mine, and Nick loved that belt. Loved it. And Nick was a guy that didn't care about belts in general, surprisingly, but he loved that one. And I got to go big gold for historical reasons, but not without tugging at the heartstrings, because Nick loved his belt and I love Nick. So.
Yeah, it's a tough run, and I love that belt. I think it's great. I hope we see it in the Powertown line very soon. So I do too. Yeah. So my next one is, this one's a little funny. So the TNA Impact Jeff Hardy belt, or
well, whatever it is, has already beat it.
Or the WWE Divas title.
Oh, the butterfly belt?
Yeah, the butterfly belt.
I'm gonna go butterfly belt. I made a few of those. I didn't make any of those Jeff Hardy belts, so I'll go with that.
Do you know by chance who made that? Not to name names, I guess, but
I do. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
All due respect, right?
Yeah, all due respect. Oh, yeah. He's bootlegged a couple of mine in the last few years, but I didn't sue him because he got to sell enough of them to make it worthwhile. But that was our friend Randy Jackson that made that Jeff Hardy belt.
So now you're going to correct me on this because I want to kind of get the idea, but do you remember that era of Hogan, not the original Hogan that he won from the Sheik, but the belt after that almost kind of looked like an afterthought belt? It was kind of almost the shape of the TV title. It was just very small on Hogan's waist. Do you remember that heavyweight title?
Well, there were two. There was the 84 belt that had the lacing like the Dome Globe belt, and then there was the 85 belt. Which had just the tooling, just like the NWA TV belt. So there were two of them, a little bit different.
Yeah,
a little bit different. But I know all about all of them because they're a part of our library. So.
Exactly. I knew you would know that. Well, the original Hogan with the big circular kind of looks like they're tag belts now, or one of those two, the 84 or the 85.
84, 85, because that's part of our stuff, and it's iconic. People still ask me to this day why WWE won't do a replica of it, and maybe they will. They're loosening up a little bit and trying to expand their catalog, so they might finally. I just got my shipment of Andre the Giant belts in on Saturday, so
nice.
They are opening up the catalog a little bit again. But I would go with that. I actually like the green belt. And I was told that Vince Sr. wanted the green strap, and he did it with a couple of different Intercontinental belts too. From the late 70s, early 80s, because the WBC, the biggest sanctioning body in boxing, had green championship belts, and Vince Sr. thought, well, we run the Garden, we're New York Madison Square Garden, so let's do something that kind of marries us to the boxing world championship, and that was the idea behind the green belt.
Okay, that makes sense.
So anyway,
that makes sense.
I didn't hate the green belt by any means. I know a lot of people don't like it these days, but I'm always going to go with our catalog stuff there. That's easy.
That makes total sense. So the WWF tag, the original, the OGs, the classic ones that the Bulldogs and the Hart Foundation carried, or the NWA tag, a la the Road Warriors, the Rock and Roll Express. Which one of those?
Okay, so Road Warriors, that's all our catalog stuff, man. So
didn't make it easy on him there.
Yeah, you got me on that one. Oh gosh, I love both of them. I actually owned one of the tag belts, and then I put them back together, and Conrad has them both now, I think. But oh geez, but oh my gosh, history-wise, NWA, belt design-wise, though, man, those OG WWF tag belts, man,
so nice.
Oh my gosh, so nice and so surreal to see them on like Arn and Tully when they went up there. I'm going to go against the home team for once here. I think I'm going to go WWF tag.
I love it. I think I'm with you. Even though those tag titles, I like that Billy Corgan's using those too. Those are nice. So
well, those are the cast ones. Those are Malkovich and like Rock and Roll wore those. But when you get into Arn and Tully, they were wearing our blue belts.
That's true. That's true. Good point. And that's
well, if you go back to the cast ones, the original ones, not those flat pieces of crap now that are out there, but you get back into the ones Ricky. See, I owned one of those too, the Silver Anniversary.
Yeah.
The original ones. I owned one of those for several years. Now, here's why I can go. If we're going with that version, the cast version, I'd go with that, and here's why I'd go against the Reggie catalog for once. And that's because that silver version with the Gold Eagle was all done by Reggie.
Okay.
It was sent to him. They were Nikita Molkovich belts that had been around since probably 1980 or something like that, and they got sent to Reggie for that silver anniversary. So if we're going with the cast ones now, not the blue ones, I would probably go with the cast ones.
Okay, I like that. All right, well then I've got 3 more here and we'll be done, I promise.
Okay.
Spinner belt, classic John Cena spinner belt versus the current blue Universal.
blue Universal. Okay.
That spinner belt too much for you?
When they came back to me in about 07 or 08, they asked me, could I make one? I said, can I?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Do I want to? Not really. And they thought that was hilarious. And instead of being offended, they're like, okay, let's get back to you. And then we went through a bunch of different art incarnations before we ended up with the one The Rock debuted.
Yeah.
And I've had the Rock center belt in my hands a few times before he got it back, and it's a mechanical wonder. It's very well done,
right?
But you get past John, right? You get past Cena, And why is Hunter wearing it? And why is Edge wearing it? And why did Randy Orton wear it? And you get into those guys and it just loses me because to me, it just didn't make sense. It was a gimmick belt for John, just like the Smoking Skull belt was a gimmick belt for Steve.
Right.
And it's not that I don't admire the craftsmanship of it. I thought it was great for John. I thought it worked for John. I don't think it worked for anybody else.
Yeah, I mean, I could almost see the USWA tag titles with spinners on them, though, the hubcaps maybe. But anyway, we'll talk about that another day. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. we need an investor to bring the USWA back. All right,
yes.
I'm up for the 30th anniversary. We'll put PG-13 on top, and we'll make them spinner tag belts.
I love it. So, all right, 2 more here, and these are going to be interesting. The Big Gold versus the Winged Eagle.
Oh my gosh, man! Boy, that's your knockout punch, huh?
Maybe one more.
Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. History-wise, I think it's just kind of a toss-up. But it is that belt, although it originated with Reggie, and I say that a lot because of the time frames, that belt is one of the reasons that I still make a living in the belt business today, through licensing and whatnot anyway, at least on that level. And to me, I always go back to what Reggie said. He said, that is our signature. That was the word he used. That's our signature piece. So I'm going to go with the Winged Eagle belt. And I know that a lot of people are going to be like, oh no, but it's not because I necessarily think it's better. It is just a choice based on my history.
Right. And it has some of your sweat and blood in it. It's got your heart in it. It's got your mentor in it. I mean, it's so much there. Yeah. So
all true. And I have the original Reggie Parks mock-up that most people don't even know it still exists. And it's a little worse for wear. And every time my friends see it, they say, why is this not in a frame yet? But I have the original Winged Eagle nameplate mock-up.
Yeah.
The very first one from late 1987 when it was being worked on in my shop.
Well, that one might have been a knockout punch, but this one is definitely going to be a knockout punch here. So the 10 pounds of gold versus the Winged Eagle.
Same answer. And it's just because of my personal history. Although I've been such a part of the NWA over the years and have made a number of those for the organization. I don't say that easily. I only say it based on the same criteria I gave on the last one.
Yeah.
But as somebody that, with my buddy Dick Bourne, did a book on that in what was that, 2008?
Yeah, I think you're right. Yep.
And I have so much history, both with that original belt and with the organization. But my heart goes with everything Reggie Parks. So I got to go with the Winged Eagle. But keep in mind, I do so. It's like that question earlier where I said, but I'm saying it, but it's tugging on my heartstrings to do it because I love that 10 pounds of gold.
Right. Such a cool.
That's not a history thing.
Yeah.
Dave, when you see 10 pounds of gold, like what wrestler do you see that belt on, like in your head?
Well, automatically it's Rick, but immediately. And I have T-shirts that I have one-off T-shirts of these guys. You know, I have more than one Dusty Rhodes 10 pounds of gold T-shirts, and I have, you know, Harley and Dusty are quick follow-ups to that.
For sure.
Yeah. I see Harley in my head for some reason. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and that's valid, and that's you know, what you said earlier. There are no wrong answers.
Yeah.
Harley, from the strictly wrestling business perspective, is unbeatable in terms of it's very valid. It's just, you know, for somebody that loves the purity of the actual wrestling business, I don't want to come off as hypocritical, but again, you know, Rick so far transcended the wrestling business, and that's why Rick is my go-to. But Harley and Dusty are quick, immediate follow-ups to that. You know, Harley was the heartbeat of that organization, and Rick will tell you that, because when Rick had to go to Japan and was afraid he was going to get shot on or double crossed, Harley went with him.
Right. I know. I love that. I love that story. It's so good.
Yeah.
But that's
so heartbeat of the NWA was Harley Race. So, you know, you can't go wrong with that answer. I have a personal connection with Rick, where, you know, but it's the same thing. All those guys, man, you know, Harley loved Reggie. Harley would carry his Reggie Parks 10 pounds of gold around for the last 25 years of his life. And most people just assumed that was his ring used championship belt. And after it gotten a little more beat up from all the wear and tear of taking it around, a lot of people thought so. But Harley loved Reggie. So I had an automatic in with Harley back in the day as well for that very reason. You know, I always do these shows. It doesn't matter who I'm talking to. You're going to hear a lot of Reggie stuff. And the reason is no Reggie, no me, you know, and I might be in the business because of the King, but I got into this position in the business because of the King of Belts. So you know, so I believe you gotta never forget where you came from. And so you're going to always hear a lot of Reggie Parks when you talk to me.
Absolutely.
That's awesome, man.
I mean, I think that's the spot we got to wrap it on, man. Dave, we got to get you back on sometime soon, man. Would love to chat more with you. I've got a million more questions, but I'll save them for the next episode. But Dave, tell them where they can find you, brother. Are you going to be out somewhere seeing some people soon, or just on social media? Where can they find you?
Man, I've got all my social media platforms, Twitter at Dave Millican, Instagram at Dave Millican. I don't really do much on either one of them because I just don't. I keep my head down, and I just don't really do a whole bunch. If somebody engages with me, sometimes I don't see Twitter for 2 or 3 days, and if somebody engages with me, I'll try to respond if it's positive. If it's not, then you know, I have no problem with moving on. But I have that, and you know, so I don't really do a lot on those things. But no, as far as getting out, man, the last StarCast I was in Nashville, and I think I was there for an hour and a half or something like that, because I had a horrible kidney stone situation going on.
Oh, no.
So I don't have anything on the books right now. I stopped in because it's close to my house with my friends over at Kayfabe Cave, where Wolfie and Jamie were. I stopped in over there and see my friends over there on some Saturdays when I've got a few minutes, but I don't really have anything lined up. I'm keeping my head down, getting some work done, and you know, I kind of like it that way too. But if something comes up and one of those, whether there's another StarCast or something like that, then maybe we'll be in touch again and we'll put it out there.
That sounds great, man. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Dave Millican, the Ace of Belts. Y'all go check out his stuff. I know you've seen his stuff because you watch wrestling on TV, so you know Dave's touch. But thank you again, brother, for coming on, and we'll talk soon, buddy. Okay.
I've had a lot of fun, guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks, care.
Man.
We'll be right back to wrap things up with the Plastic Sheik after these messages.
This is The Big Picture, Michael Jablonski. Don't forget to tune in every week to Jablonski's Pissed Off on the Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling YouTube channel.
The heartthrob in the sport, he's gonna tell you all about it. He doesn't care what you think. You're gonna hear all about it. Mike Jablonski. He's so pissed off. Mike Jablonski. He's so pissed off. Mike Jablonski. He's so pissed off. He's pissed off.
Hey everyone, this is Shane from Insane Shane's World. I release wrestling figures of enhancement talent, mid-card wrestlers, and wrestlers that you never thought would have a figure available. So if you're interested in adding a really cool and rare figure to your collection, then don't hesitate to contact me at shamtheman73@gmail.com. That's SHAM theman73@gmail.com. You can also join my Facebook group. Just search Insane Shane's World.
All right, we're back in Sheik. Wow, what a cool show, man. Is Dave not the coolest dude ever?
Man, you in this podcast we've been doing, man, how fortunate we've been to talk to people, and one after the other. I mean, it's just like people are so cool, and have been so great to us, and they don't have to be, but they are.
Yeah, I feel like Dave is just one of those kind of guys that, like I said, he has a little bit of a foot in every field of the industry. But at the same time, I feel like he just knows somebody, and he's just so casually, just like, yeah, my buddy this and my buddy that. And it's just like, wow. Yeah. But anyway, Dave is just, like I said, he knows everybody and a little bit of everything. He's done things for everybody. There was one question I wanted to ask him, like who was, because the Dan Lambert guy.
The UFC guys that are in wrestling,
yeah, he's a huge belt collector. And I wanted to ask him if Conrad or Dan had the largest belt collection. But anyway, I don't know. It was cool, man. I went to his website. It's DaveMillicanBelts.com. I highly recommend y'all go check it out. I put the link in the show notes, so make sure you click on that link. Go check out his website. It gives you a little glimpse of all the stuff that he's done. The one thing I will say is I know for a fact he has done some incredible work, but what he is so careful to do is he pays respect to his mentor, Reggie Parks, which obviously, that's important for sure.
Oh yeah. It's there's such a great connection, I think, between him with his mentor, and he wants to pay ultimate respects to him now that he's gone, and, into the future as far as he can. And I would, hope, and I don't know, Dave may already have a mentee, but I'm sure he'll pass that down as well sometime.
Yeah, for sure. I hope he is training someone to be his replacement. Not anytime soon, of course, Dave.
Right, yeah.
We hope you last forever, brother. But at the same time, we need to know that somebody's going to be the next ace of belts, or the, I don't know, the jack of belts, whatever. But
yeah, there you
go. Long story short on that, though, he is a classy, just a really nice guy. Every time I bring him up with somebody, I'm like, hey, we got Dave Millican on the show. Oh man, he's a great guy, and I think this show just proved that. So we definitely appreciate y'all listening as always. Sheik, I don't know what we're doing for the next show, but we always come up with something. I'm excited every time we get to record and all the fun things we get to do. So I'm going to leave everybody with this. Of course, you can find us at GMBMPW on all the social medias that matter. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. If you go to all those, check us out. We've got our Sheik shorts all over, whether it's in reel form or short form, whatever, you get it. And honestly, just help us grow the brand. Help us get the name out there.
Yeah, let us know if there's something you want to see or hear about. And
absolutely,
if we think we can do it justice, we'll give it a try.
Yeah, and the one thing is the podcasting of wrestling, obviously, there's a million of them. So first of all, if you're listening to this right now, thank you for taking the time to listen to this and allowing us to hopefully entertain you by talking about professional wrestling. And, that means the world to us. The best thing that you can do to support us after you've gone, say, Jimmy, I've already liked your social media. I've already subscribed to your YouTube channel. I've already followed you on all Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all that. The best thing that you can do secondary to that, and it costs nothing, is if you go onto Apple, Spotify, anywhere that it allows you to rate and review. It's a huge deal to us. And that means so much.
Yeah, and if you're on our YouTube channel and checking out one of our videos, whether it's the longer videos or whether it's the shorts, man, give us a like, give us a comment. Comments are always helpful. Some of the YouTube comments can get a little spicy, iffy. But yeah, whatever you want to call it, spicy, iffy, whatever.
Definitely, it's very appreciated. And the people, I will say this about you. Say what you want. We love it. I always love when I open it up on my computer and I see a little number, a red number up there in the bell. And I know
a notification.
It's a notification to let me know that somebody liked it and or commented. And again, it just helps the algorithm get the word out there about our show. We do this with zero budget. Right? I mean, we're not making any money for this right now. We're doing it with all the love that we can do. So anything that you can do like that can help us out, it's so appreciated. And if you have questions for us, if you ever want us to answer a question or give you a shout out on the show, let us know. We'd be glad to do that too. Anything that you can do to help the algorithm kind of move itself along and get the Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling name out there, we thank you for it. And once again, we actually do have some t-shirts. If you go on one of our social media pages or you just contact me directly at gmbmpw@gmail.com, we can get you a Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling t-shirt. We can get you a Plastic Sheik t-shirt. We can get you whatever kind of t-shirt you want. They are $25 and they ship directly to you from the manufacturer. So we thank you all again so much for listening, not only to us, but especially this Dave Millican episode. Thank you all so much.
We do this for fans of wrestling and to show that you don't have to be a big time legend in the business to have a podcast talking about wrestling. So
absolutely.
We just appreciate your support and keep the listens coming.
Yeah, and as of this reporting, one thing I do want to say, our sincere condolences go out to the Arn Anderson family. The loss of his son Barrett recently at the age of 37. Very sad to see that. We love Arn on this show. Arn, you may never hear this, brother, but just know that our thoughts and prayers are with you. Thank you again for your career and everything, and just know that our thoughts and prayers are with you, Arn. And other than that, brother, I don't have anything else. Once again, thank y'all for listening.
Yeah, thank you guys. Don't forget.
Fight for a Dave Millican belt.
With a tear in my eye. This is the greatest moment in my life. This has been a James Rock Street production.